The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Tuesday night, February 3rd, 2026. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 313. Mark your store cards at home. 2 weeks ago tonight, Nils Grevillius, private detective from Los Angeles, joined us, and we had to cut it a little short, and he said he wanted to come back. So we're putting it on now. Here we go. He's from... Join... Oh, no. Oh, did we lose you? There you are.
There I am.
There you are. From his car in Victorville, California. Remind me, where's Victorville in the county, in Los Angeles County? I can't remember.
Oh, it's in San Bernardino County. It's in the high desert.
Oh, okay. I thought it was in... All right. Very good. Very good. How you doing, Nils?
I'm having a lovely and perfect day. How are things in Waltzistan?
Well, you know, they're getting, let's say they're getting better. Let's put it that way. First of all, the temperature is a whole 18 degrees today, which is better than it's been the last 2 weeks. So that's good. And it appears that everything's kind of calming down a little bit, but we want to get to that in a second too. So, are you out working? Is that what you're doing?
Well, I have to earn a living, but it's a target-rich environment for a private detective in California. We have people who steal with both hands. Nothing is really illegal here, other than beating up men in skirts or shooting Marxists or something like that. But yeah, I'm a very busy man.
Yeah.
I don't have to find a job.
You are in the right place for what you do, aren't you? You know, it's all those film noir stuff and Philip Marlowe and all that stuff. And Raymond Chandler. It's not much of an exaggeration, is it?
Well, no, it isn't. What we can say after decades in the profession here is there is no larger collection in the world of people who are simultaneously delicate, hostile, and wealthy.
Well put. Very well
put. It's perfect.
It is.
It's a garden for a bum like me. It's like Iowa in terms of it has two growing seasons with modern hybrids. You know, you can plant in the middle of January or something and be harvesting all the way through December. Just kidding. That's what it's like for me.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. So when we ended last 2 weeks ago, I actually went back to look. You said specifically you want to talk about your time in the Pinkerton agency. So
yes, I got recruited by the Pinkertons in 1987. I was working as a skip tracer and financial crimes investigator for Dun & Bradstreet at the time, which was like a desktop job. We didn't do any field work. It was all databases, pre-internet searches, use of the post office and public agencies to identify people liable on commercial accounts. And it sounds like a dull job, but it was a rich training ground. I was expected working at Dun & Bradstreet to close 8 cases a day, meaning identify who was liable for a commercial account, figure out where they could be found to be served with a lawsuit, and identifying any assets related to them or to a corporation or a limited company charter. And it was an intense bit of work. I was there almost a year and built a lot of skills up, and then got recruited by the Pinkertons. I didn't know I was getting hired by the Pinkertons. They ran an ad in the Los Angeles Times needing experienced surveillance investigators. And when I saw the ad, I'd done a lot of surveillance in the Army, and I thought, okay, maybe it's, an insurance company or something like that. And I was willing to do I figured it'd pay more than desktop work. And I rang the number up, and I got a blind interview, meaning report at this office, Mid-Wilshire, be dressed in business attire, have your full resume, that kind of thing. And it was the Pinkerton service. And before they even bring you on board, they do a preliminary vetting to make sure you're not a member of something.
Oh, we lost you, I think. Hold on. You still there, Nils? Can you hear me? Oh, we might have lost the connection. Oh, we did lose the connection. Hopefully he'll be back. We're going to have to edit this, aren't we? Oh, well. That's life. And the story was getting kind of interesting, too. All right. Are you
there? You are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to take psychological screening. I was subjected to a background investigation like that of LAPD. The guy running the investigations unit at Mid-Wilshire was a retired LAPD organized crime intelligence detective, and they were very exacting. So what got me in the door, other than my Army experience, was my ability to communicate what I had done picking up bail jumpers. I would, a couple of times a month, I'd hire on with a bondsman to round up his bail jumpers, and I could deliver a 5-page report to them, double spaced, done on an IBM Selectric typewriter or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that was sufficient to get me in the door. And things were competitive in the Pinkertons, Jim. You had to have special skills if you wanted the maximum number of billable hours. They weren't paying you for work you weren't doing. So I had above average contacts and abilities, having worked at Dun & Bradstreet. I knew how to get it microfilm voter registration for all 5 Southern California counties. I had access to crisscross directories, which were phone directories, big paper phone directories, where every address is listed in sequence, and it tells you whose phone number is connected there and how long it's been connected. And then in the back of the directory, telephone numbers in sequence. That is, if they're listed. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are great starting points. And then other things like property microfilm, DBA microfilm, who's doing business as, that sort of thing. And then when we'd have a corporation, I had a fast track phone number with the secretaries of state for like 11 states. I could get through, instead of waiting in the telephone queue for a half an hour for an operator to answer and give me corporate status and tell me who the agent for service was and these sort of things. I had people who'd get it to me in a minute and a half if I got on the phone. And one of the things I had to do at the Pinkerton service was I had to ride the elevator down to the ground floor and use a pay telephone next to the parking garage, because I didn't want the other Pinkerton agents to know who my sources were. You had to jealously guard any resource that you had, because if the next guy knew how it was that you were doing it, he could then bid for the case and say, wait a minute, I know how to do what Nils does. Right. I know how to do what Jim does. So that got me a lot of work. I did a lot of theft surveillance, loading docks, trucks, and even going into hotel bars and corporate joints, that sort of thing, to watch bartenders stealing. You pretend to be a customer, and there's a particular way that a bartender would steal in that era. It was before cameras were so ubiquitous in the workplace. What a bartender would do to steal is they would underring drinks, meaning a party comes in, it's 4 people, they're ordering four well drink cocktails, and let's say every well drink is $2.50, right? So the bartender rings up on the register 3 of them and keeps track of the underring. He charges for 4, rings for 3. So at the end of his shift, he knows exactly how many increments of $2.50 to remove from the register. Well, it doesn't sound like big money, but if you've got a barman working there 4 nights a week, 4 hours every night, and he's stealing $250 per shift, that puts a big dent in profitability, whether it's a privately held company or a publicly traded company. It was boring, and I was expected to drink and work at the same time, which is like a ridiculous conflict of choice for a bum like me, Jim.
Well, I have to ask you, Nils. I can't work and drink at the same time. Can you? I suppose you manage it, or I mean, some people enjoy it.
Well, okay, Jim. I used to be perfectly capable of it. I could walk, ride a bicycle, chew gum, and shoot a gun all at the same time.
I believe
so. Sitting in one of these nice places, making chatty with the women in the place, acting like any other drunk male, trying to hit on the women while paying attention to what the bartender's doing. I developed my own shorthand, and if the bartender asked me what I was doing on the coast or I would say I have a system for picking the horses. And I knew a little bit about horse racing at the time. So if he'd asked me for a tip, I could give him a tip. And I once saw Charles Bukowski, the poet and author, win a bunch of money in 1987 betting on some nag at Santa Anita called Carol's Beaver, of all things, right?
Okay.
So if this bartender asked me, so what horse are you fancying in the 6th race at Hollywood Park? I'd say I think Carol's Beaver is gonna place in that. I'd put money on it. And they'd get distracted by the name Carol's Beaver. Everybody gets distracted for some stupid weird reason. Carol's Beaver is the name of the horse to bet on. I bet Carol's Beaver wound up down at Oscar Mayer like a year and a half after that.
Probably, yeah, right.
Right. You can buy shares in Carol's Beaver if you find the right tin of Vienna sausages. Anyway, that's exactly what I was. And then we'd get protective work, a lot of it in the aerospace industry. A machinist at XYZ defense plant says he's gonna come back and shoot his boss or his boss's boss. And so we'd have the boss's house under surveillance, and we operated in complete secrecy. We never identified ourselves unless absolutely necessary as Pinkerton detectives, meaning to the police, to some other government agency, that sort of thing. You're always operating under cover for status, cover for action. So a good cover for status is I'm a property appraiser, or I'm a location scout for the television industry. We're thinking of filming a TV commercial for Hormel Foods here, as a matter of fact, and they're going to grind up an old racehorse named Carol's Beaver, and we're going to do it all right here. But that's a good cover for what it is that you're doing. Back then, there were no digital cameras, so everything was analog camera. And I discovered the best cameras to use often, unless we were having to do like distance photography with a long lens, I would buy those cheap single-use Kodak cameras that were essentially a box of film with a camera built around them.
Right.
Those were fantastic because you looked like a tourist using them. And you could, I could speak to them in German or Russian or something, and they'd assume I was a tourist, heavily accent my.
Oh, geez, lost you again. Holy Christ. Too bad. I was just about to ask a question. Oh, well. So I'm going to take the time to edit. Oh, he's back. He's back. Hold on. Oh, yeah.
There you are.
I was just about to ask you something, and that is, what years are we talking about? Is this early 90s?
We're talking about late 80s or early 90s.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and of course, nobody worked from home then, so you were actually at the Pinkerton office, right? You're talking about going down to the payphone in the parking lot. So you're not, no one worked at home, right?
I had trouble hearing you, Jim.
I said in the late 80s, early 90s, nobody worked at home, right? You're at the Pinkerton office, right? Oh man. Can you hear me?
Say again?
Nils, I said, okay, in in the late 80s.
There we go, much better.
Okay, in the late 80s, early 90s, no one worked from home. You were actually at the Pinkerton office, right?
Well, that is correct. But I would go into the Pinkerton office only to report. The way the cases typically came down is there was no internet, so I wouldn't get an email. I'd get a page. And I'd call the boss, and sometimes the most complex surveillance in the world would go down like this. You meet agent so-and-so down at the Shell station next to the Valley Hilton in Van Nuys. You're going to be placing Jim Walsh under surveillance at this address 2 blocks from there. You coordinate with him. You work out a 2-man, 2-car team. What we're interested in is where he goes, what he does, if you see any weapons being loaded into his car or being unloaded from his car, if you see him drinking, using drugs, buying drugs in hand-to-hand sales, things like that. Like any other law enforcement surveillance, only you're operating privately. You were expected to turn in a log report written longhand on yellow legal pad at the end of every shift. You were supposed to send it by paper mail. And the Pinkertons had a system of analog secrecy dating back to the 19th century using the mail. And I'm not going to characterize it other than to say that in context, it was highly secure. The way that we communicated was highly secure. We all had pagers and calling cards. If I got a page from another Pinkerton, it always had his agent number after the page. Like mine was -86. So if I paged someone and put a -86 at the end of it, they knew it was me.
Yeah. You were talking about working for the aerospace industry, but did you actually do any surveillance regarding company secrets or industrial secrets?
You're talking about intellectual property of aerospace companies?
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, we did that. We also did surveillance and investigations to identify people dealing narcotics and other illegal drugs on the premises of aerospace companies. It was before Congress passed a law permitting random urinalysis of transportation workers and defense workers. And the unions representing them were fighting it tooth and nail. So the way that, if you consider, what if a jet engine mechanic drinks a 6-pack of beer and snorts cocaine on his lunch break and then goes back to the plant and installs an engine in a 747?
Yeah.
Do you want to fly in that plane?
No, I don't.
And
no.
If through maintenance records after an accident, it's discovered that Mechanic Jim was smoking crack on every coffee break, and the company was aware of it and did nothing to mitigate it. The company is really in big trouble. They have a lot of liability. So their way of mitigating it, in case Congress, the NTSB, etc., came at them and said, "What are you doing to reduce and mitigate substance abuse in your workforce?" They could say, "We're hiring the private investigative outfits, and here we have stacks of reports. We've fired 17 employees in 3 states in 2 years." Things like that. That's mitigation. Now,
Yeah.
occasionally we'd manage to make a felony case. I got fake arrested twice as an undercover operative, where my boss would come in with the sheriff's department. They'd serve a search warrant at the workforce, and I'd wind up in handcuffs and get hauled out with everyone else.
Even though they knew you were not part of it, right? That's why it was fake, correct?
Well, my coworkers had no idea that I was an undercover operative.
Right.
And that part of my cover was getting arrested with them.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it working for the Pinkertons?
So
On the whole?
I loved being in the Pinkertons. Every single thing except the pay. The pay was okay, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And in the summer, I'm going to say 1990 or 91, I got called into the office to look over a work file by the boss, and the executive secretary handed me the wrong part of the file, the administrative part of the file. And in it was the billing for the case. And usually that we were firewalled off from that. It was intensely compartmentalized, so we never really knew what we were being billed at. And I saw that I was being billed out at 10 times what I was being paid.
That was going to be my guess.
Jim,
right.
I'm a man. I understand how business works. The big pay is for the stockholders and the upper level managers, medium pay for the mid managers. And if you're working hourly for some outfit, you get hourly wages. That's how that works. But at the time I saw it, I thought, okay, so they're billing me out at, say, $150 an hour or $200 an hour. That could be my money.
Right. Did you go immediately?
And so I started contemplating. Yeah, I started contemplating going into business for myself. So I had a falling out with them eventually over something I did. They never did anything to me. They only did things for me, Jim.
Uh-huh.
And it's in my book, The Last Lawman. I go into greater detail. I don't want to spoil the book for anyone.
I got the book cover on the screen here. Yeah.
All right. So I describe what occurred, and I bore them no ill will. And what later occurred was the Pinkertons had some case matters that they couldn't touch, like if they had a conflict of interest, but still had an ancillary interest in the case being addressed, or they had an internal affairs matter where company hierarchy couldn't investigate somebody in company hierarchy. They would lay those cases off on me to handle after they were satisfied that I could do all of the work. And I started handling matters like that, and still did up until, I'm going to say, 2014 or 2015. And the man who would bring me those matters retired and died shortly after his retirement. He was like a George Smiley type within the Pinkerton service.
And Nils, a friend of mine has a theory that all men die 2 years after they retire. Is that what happened there?
Well, look at John Holmes. I think John died while he was still working. It's very sad.
Yeah, what a job, too.
Right. Well, I was a stunt double for 11 years. I had to reform myself and figure out another way to earn a bad living other than that.
Is that really true? Were you a stunt brother? Double? I don't know. I have no idea. Come on. You've done a
Well,
lot of
I'll
interesting
never
things.
tell on myself.
Okay.
This is something for the anxious housewives of Larkin to figure out on their own. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because I've done stuff people don't know about. If I told you, you'd probably be shocked, and not even illegal stuff either. So I don't know. I can see pretty much anything.
Well, right. Okay. Well, you want to know how private detectives are different from lawyers?
Yeah. How?
Private detectives are not chummy and collegiate. If we're going to a convention of private detectives, we're spying on each other. We're trying to steal each other's secrets and clients. There are only a handful of private detectives I will trust to work a case with me. Most of the men and women in my profession are thieves and bums. And if you call one of them up and ask them about me, they will tell you the same thing about me, that I'm a thief or a bum or whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
Lawyers, on the other hand, will get together every day for lunch. They'll play basketball and poker together. They marry each other's, kids off to each other, all that, that kind of thing, while still doing bad things to each other. Okay,
Yeah,
that's a difference. Now,
right. They'll stand up in
the
court.
only
Yeah. Go ahead.
right, right. The only profession I can directly correspond and relate to the profession I'm in is that of magicians. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a magicians club in Los Angeles called Magic Castle.
Right. I know that.
Jim Peters wanted to join the Magic. Right. If Jim wanted to join the Magic Castle, he would have to audition for a membership committee at least 3 magic tricks that were good enough to get him in.
Yeah.
And then once he's a member of the Magic Castle, he would be spying on the other magicians, trying to steal their magic tricks.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that's what you guys are doing,
And
right?
that's the only right. Private detectives will occasionally share resources, like a couple of mangy lions sharing what's left of a zebra at a muddy watering ditch.
Uh-huh. Right. That's quite the analogy, Nils. Hey, you know something? I was reading through some of your biographical materials, and there's one little line here that came out that I thought was interesting. And it said, born to ruling class progressives, Nils Grevillius couldn't dash his parents' hopes fast enough. What was your childhood like? Where are you from? I've never even asked you.
Well, I was born in New York City, Jimmy.
And around where?
And
like
I was born in the same neighborhood that Donald Trump was born in. I was born in Flushing, part of Queens.
Uh-huh.
And my dad was with the New York Times. My mother was a prep school girl, all Canada, all America lacrosse and basketball player. She went to Sweetbriar. My father infiltrated KKK groups for the NAACP in Arkansas in the 50s after he got out of the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
My father left the New York Times in 1965, and we moved to Terre Haute, Indiana. And the old man worked as the...
That must have been quite a shock from Flushing to Terre Haute.
Well, I was rather young at the time, Jim. By the time I was 7, Terre Haute was the entire world. Okay.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It was a notorious mob town. It was the mattress for the Chicago outfit. And my father was the crime editor, the politics editor, city desk, all of that. And, my father shielded me from a lot at that point. Later, after we moved to Los Angeles, he gave me all of his experience working crime as a reporter. He was one of the few men in New York City at the Times who had a gun permit from the chief of police of New York to carry a gun as a New York Times employee.
Yeah. And that's almost
And
impossible to get now. I don't know what it was like then, but
well, correct. Even after the Heller decision and the Bruin decision, the reason that it's that way is our Justice Department doesn't swoop in and file civil rights charges against city officials for violating the civil rights of New Yorkers, which should be done, because unless and until that occurs, their rights are only notional.
yeah. I have heard, I don't know if it's true that the city of New York gives out only about a dozen gun permits to citizens every year. It's that low.
Well, because they make the process take years.
Yeah, right.
And the review so onerous that everybody gives up on the process, which is against the law. It's a right. It's not a privilege.
Right.
Here in Los Angeles, we have the same problem. We have an idiotic sheriff in Sheriff Luna, and the idiot who manages the civilian CCW program sends you a letter characterizing your right as a privilege, revocable by the sheriff for any capricious reason. It takes 1.5 years or 2 years to get that permit. If you're a public official like a judge, a deputy court clerk, something like that, you get your permit in 5 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, right. And if you have an investigator's license, do you get it sooner?
Well, if you have a detective's license, the way that it works is you get your permit from the state of California.
So
private detective is the only person in the state of California who can carry a sidearm loaded in plain sight without a badge. Okay. And so what the old chief of police of Pasadena used to tell us was, put a jacket over your pistol and don't make trouble. If you don't do anything illegal, you're not going to have problems from us, because it created a greater threat to public safety having people walking around openly carrying guns. Okay.
Right.
Right. So California has problems, Jim. That's all I can tell you. The reason they didn't.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
The reason they didn't want to comply with the civil rights laws about gun permits was because they wanted to sell them and trade them as a great political favor to donors and insiders, which is what New York has always done and Boston has always done. That sort of thing. It's corruption at its worst.
Yeah, I read some statistics today. I mean, this is really terrible, about the fact that of the 50 states, California, I actually wrote this down here. California is listed last in both poverty, homelessness, unemployment, what's quote unquote opportunity, and affordability. In 50 states, it's the last in all those categories.
Well, and we have the most marvelously handsome governor in all of North America too, in Gavin Del Tardo. The news media is going to try to grease him up, and artfully insert him in the rectum of the body politic.
That's right.
As our next president.
That's exactly what they're going to try to do. Precisely. Right.
Like one of Richard Gere's alleged gerbils. That's what they're going to do with Gavin.
Yeah. Well, I want to hold it. I want to back up for a second, though, Nils. So your father ran the crime desk in Terre Haute. Did that have any effect of you becoming a detective eventually, do you think? Or even what you did in the army? Or
tangentially. When we moved to Los Angeles and when I was a bit older, my father and I witnessed a police shooting in the Rampart Division that was kind of formative to me. I saw some people, a couple of men get gunned down by the LAPD who needed to be gunned down. They were bad guys.
Uh-huh.
And it was after that my father and I, like, we'd go to lunch at some place in industrial Los Angeles. And my father, when I was like 11, showed me how to spot a transvestite.
Oh,
And back then, transvestites weren't purple-haired, peanut allergy high school kids. Transvestites were ex-convicts who would dress as women so that they could roll drunk men.
uh-huh.
You know, they would be prostitutes, that sort of thing, for the purposes of robbery as well as prostitution. And he taught me how to spot them. He taught me how to spot an ex-convict by his tattoos, how he walked, how he dressed, the tattoos on his face, the tattoos on his hands, what they meant, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that kind of sparked your interest, huh? In the whole thing?
Well, I was always kind of interested in crime, criminality, the less than obvious parts of things. When I was in the 9th grade, I read a very interesting book entitled The Onion Field by Joe Wambaugh.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
And
that.
it's about well, many people aren't now. I mean, it's almost forgotten.
No.
2 LAPD detectives kidnapped at gunpoint by 2 bad guys who take them to an onion field in Bakersfield to execute them. One is murdered, one escapes, survives, and lives to testify. And it's about the devils that haunted the surviving officer till the day he was fired by LAPD.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine whose father was supposedly actually the basis of one of Wampaugh's characters, supposedly. He was a famous detective here in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
For the
Well, that's
police.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm just talking. It's a talk show. That's what we do. Hey, yeah, go ahead.
Wambaugh, I sent him my raw manuscript a year and a half, 2 years ago, asking him if he would review it, write a blurb for it, maybe the foreword.
He's still alive?
No, he died about 9-10 months ago.
Oh, okay. How old was he when he
So
passed?
I sent the raw manuscript to Wambaugh. Wambaugh and I had spoken a few times in the past 25 years, never with any problems. And he sends my manuscript back with a yellow sticky on it saying, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" And nothing else.
Really? But the thing is, like, you were doing it. He's just writing about it.
Well, no, he was a cop for 16 years.
All right.
But he turned into a cranky old man. And I'm a cranky old man. I've been in training all my life to be a crankier old man, Jim. I love being a cranky old man.
So do I, but I'm trying to figure out why it happens. That's the thing I'm curious about.
Well, I had hair like Elvis Presley all the way down to my eyebrows when I was 19. And by the time I was 35, I was as bald as an egg. It's horrible, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but 35 isn't exactly cranky old man territory, though. You know, it isn't.
Well, I'm a little older than 35 now, Jim. I know you're very surprised.
I am very surprised. I would have pegged you around 40, so, you know.
Well, okay.
Hey, I got a note from your publicist this morning, and she said I should ask you, and I would have never thought of this. You know, they've decided they're putting body cams on all the ICE people here in Minneapolis. I don't know why they didn't do that earlier, but she asked me to ask you if there's any chance that could backfire on them.
Well, backfire on Antifa, the Marxists running the streets of Minneapolis? Absolutely.
No.
It backfired on them with the Black Lives Matter thing in 2020. It put the lie to all their garbage bullshit. They want to selectively leak video, that sort of thing. Yeah, this isn't going to work well for them. I don't see ICE doing anything against the law or outside public policy or contrary to good
No.
training as peace officers. They've created this ridiculous, absurd psyop suggesting that they're just taking men in off the street, paying them a bonus, and a day and a half later, they're wearing an ICE uniform and a mask and beating up little brown people. These are all very well-trained federal law enforcement agents.
I know the amount of misinformation that's flying around here, especially among the established press, is mind-boggling. It's unbelievable. I've never seen it to this extent.
Well, isn't the Strib a Marxist shit rag now?
It is. We call it the communist newspaper here. That's what we call it. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Right.
How many advertisers does the Strib have?
Oh, I have to tell you this is about 3-4 months ago. For something I'm doing here on the show, I bought a hard copy of the Strib because the Strib is online. The whole thing's behind the paywall. So I actually bought a hard copy, right? And I looked through it. I actually made a point to look through every page. 4 sections. There wasn't a single ad in the whole paper, Nils. None. They are running this thing at a complete, utter loss. It's unfreaking believable. I did not.
Well, that means that Alex Soros is paying their bills.
Yes, that's exactly what it means. You're absolutely right. I know that's true. That's exactly what's going on here. But I have a tendency, I'm agreeing with you. I think the longer this goes on, the more this is going to backfire on them because more and more people are starting to realize how ridiculous this is, And so unlike 2020, when it was like short and sweet and like a giant firecracker and kind of went away, if they're going to keep this up for another 6 months or so, it's going to get pathetic, actually,
Well, if I were Pam Bondi Cash Patel, I would be publishing every booking photo, their name, their date of birth, their hometown, their employer, or their university that they attend, so that we can put together who's paying for all this.
Yeah.
These people don't seem to have jobs of any kind other than, and so they come in from out of state. The Marxists who are rioting in Minneapolis are coming in from Wisconsin, Chicago, Oakland, Los Angeles, wherever. And if ICE turns around and concentrates in Chicago next week, they'll all descend on Chicago with their hotel bills being paid by NGOs, meaning taxpayer dollars, as well as Marxist shitheads like Alex Soros.
Yeah. And more than a couple of them have gone on camera admitting the fact they're getting paid to do this. I mean, they've actually admitted it at this point. It's unbelievable. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I think there would be very little hard left organization on our streets, Jim, if we pulled that NGO money.
Yeah, and we should. I mean, I'm at this point. I'm to the point where I think I'd be okay with Congress not giving any money to any non-profit organization ever. I don't see.
And we should also be pulling the tax exempt status of organizations like the ACLU, which is now just a partisan hard left organizing group. We should be pulling it for Indivisible, for the National Lawyers Guild. Just pull their nonprofit status. Make them file. Yeah, exactly. Make them pay taxes.
I mean, what do they think they're churches? I mean, shit. Yeah, I don't understand why they're nonprofits.
Well, isn't this the hardcore faith of of Lenin's kindergarten, Jim?
That's right.
Did I miss something?
No, you didn't.
The reason they hated the January 6th protests so much is it was an assault on Santa Claus's toy factory to them.
Right.
I mean, that's their visceral reaction to stinky Walmart people invading the United States Capitol, as if our Congress didn't defile the place every day of the week, every year.
Yes, I know. As I get older, the thing I'm more and more fascinated by is how stupid our Congress people are. I just don't. It's like, basically you're winning a high school popularity contest. That's basically how you get in.
Right.
Maybe not true of the Senate, but for the House, I mean, I've always said, people say, well, the cultures of these two institutions are different. Yeah, at the Senate, everything's genteel. The House is basically monkeys throwing feces at each other. That's basically what it is.
Well, you're correct, but the Senate is like the House of Lords or something like that.
Right, it is. You're right. Very true.
Right. So John McCain, was the greatest asset the Democrat cult had in the United States Senate for 35 years. And Mitch McConnell is low beta, okay? The shuffling moves you're referring to in the United States Congress are people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who thought it was about her. She believed all of the stuff from singing in the shower and playing air guitar, and decided that she was going to get on the stage with Mick Jagger. Okay,
right. That's right. Oh my God, that is such a great analogy. You so pegged that, because no, this is not going to work out well for her. She doesn't understand this.
Michelle Bachmann is smarter than she is.
That's right. You're right. I know. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay, I tell you what. Well, you're in your car and you're doing business, and we're doing business here, and I'm going to let you go. Okay. I told you 45 minutes.
The title of the book,
yes,
is The Last Law. Pre-order it. It'll be delivered in June. Tell all of the people in the Twin Cities that they have my respect and sympathy, and better days are ahead.
Yes, they are. Yes. Thank you, Neil. Yeah. You take care. We'll talk to you soon. All right. I really appreciate it.
Roger that, Jimmy.
Take care. Our thanks to Nils Grevillius there for joining us from his car. Little connection was a little bad. Sorry about that, a little dropout. And I also have to apologize to you for something else too. We had Charles Goyette on the show last Thursday night. And those of you who watched it live realize that we had a distinct problem, and that is on the playback of the interview, the power went out in our studio. Now, you're thinking, well, don't you just upload that? No, we don't. We actually stream it live in real time from our hard drives in our studio. That's what happened, and the power went out. And I assume it's because of the weather, because everyone's having trouble with that all over the place. So the power was out here for about 15 minutes. It took us about another 5 minutes to get back up and running, but we had to start the show from the top. So it was a big mess. We've kind of sort of corrected it on the archives. I haven't corrected it on Rumble, because Rumble just stuck both the aborted version and the final real version together. So you get to watch the first 20 minutes twice. But I apologize for that. Apologies for that. God knows. It's amazing any of this crap works. it just is. It's like, it's the interweb, thank God Al Gore invented it, my God, there's a piece of work. But anyway, don't get me started on that. So it's the bedtime news for Tuesday night, February 3rd. I got a lot to talk about today. I try to keep these we almost always is almost exactly half an hour. I'm going to go over tonight. I got a few things. First of all, alluding to what Nils and I were talking about earlier in the interview, about the fact that it's not just that there's an enormous amount of misinformation going on about what's going on here and the riots in Minneapolis and now Los Angeles too. It's that you would have the impression watching all of this in all the media that the whole world thinks this is all abhorrent. But as I suspected, the polling's coming in today, and the polling is exactly the opposite. As a matter of fact, as I was telling Nils, it appears now the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get for the Democrats. The majority of people are still against or still for deporting the illegal criminals. And it's not a huge majority. It's not 80%, but it's 55, 60%. It is. The people who are protesting this or rioting or what you want to call it, they're in the minority. And the reason they're doing this and the reason the Democratic Party is allowing it to happen is they want to convince Americans they're in the majority, and they aren't. It's the opposite. So you got to hand it to Harry Enton on CNN. He's one of the few people over there who actually knows what they're doing, and he always calls it as it is. But he put up his charts this morning, and yeah, the American public is still not convinced that this stuff is bad. Like I said, it's not a big majority, but it's still a majority. So there's that, and so you got statistics here about, and also David Strom was alluding to this on hotair.com too. So the other thing is that the Democrats are totally against what's called the SAVE Act, which is the act that says that's going to require people to show voter ID, some sort of photo ID for all federal elections, national elections, right? Believe it or not, they're saying, well, it's Jim Crow 2.0 and it's going to disenfranchise a bunch of the black community. It turns out 76% of the black community is for this, in addition to 85% of white voters and 82% of Latino voters. Everybody's for this. Everybody. And yet they're trying to make, because the problem is, I got a graphic I'm going to put up on the screen for you here today. And this is the type of stuff I like to give you. This is the stuff you don't hear anywhere else. The graphics from Newsmax. It's a little passing thing here. And also, one of those put me over there. This is a graphic of all the states that Kamala Harris won in the 2025 presidential election. All of them, every single one of them, does not require voter ID. Coincidence? The problem is this whole thing, you take this whole thing together, the problem is the Democrats realize they are losing the heart and soul of the American people, and they are. And so the reason, and they're losing it through this fraud, through the fact that people are starting to catch on to the fact that that voter cheating is prevalent. And another example here, and this kind of lost in the news too, in the first 48 hours of Spanberger being elected governor of Virginia, within the first 2 days, the Virginia House of Representatives, or whatever they call their legislative body there, I don't exactly know the name, voted to eliminate. It's not just that they're eliminating hand counting of ballots in voting across the state of Virginia, they're actually making it illegal. You can't, the law states, the way it was written, that you cannot hand count ballots for any reason. That's the quote, for any reason. You can't do it. What would be the point of that, of outlawing that? What would be the point? The only point I can think of is if you wanted to cheat in an election. That's the only point I can think of. And God knows it's getting so obvious at this point that the American public is, my prediction here, and like I said to Nils in the interview, is the longer this goes on in Minneapolis, the more the American public is going to turn against the Democrats. It's starting to look more and more stupid. It is. And now, okay, I will grant that this Preddy guy that got shot, this is a pretty murky situation. There's a possibility that some of these ICE agents are going to be held criminally liable. Have you noticed people stop talking about Renee Good, because that's pretty cut and dried. I will be surprised if if this guy is held up on charges on this. The Preddy thing is another matter, and so of course they're martyring him up the wazoo because yes, something might have gone wrong here. But it's one single person, and you have hundreds and hundreds of protesters, and some of them have admitted on camera that they're getting paid to protest. Some of them have admitted this. People are tracking the money. It's like the whole thing. It's become what you call in America a clusterfuck. It has. So this is my prediction. Now I'm going to make a prediction. I've been pretty good at predicting. I'm not faultless, but the thing is, all of my predictions are on tape. So I have no problem. Probably if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I reserve the right to change my mind. But I'm predicting right now that for the November midterm elections, the Republican, it's going to be pretty much the same as it is now. The Republicans will keep a very slight majority in the House and maybe gain a couple extra seats in the Senate. That's my prediction. I'm going to amend that though. And also, like I said, I reserve the right to change my mind as time goes on. I mean, it's 9 months away. If the Democrats do win, they will also have a very slim majority, like, just like a handful of seats like the Republicans have now. I don't think it's going to change much at all. Because and the other thing is, there's other stuff that came out here too, and the fact is, somebody said that, all right, so now the Trump organization, the Trump administration, is saying that when we do the next census, they don't want illegal aliens counted. Now the counting for the census, as the argument has always been, citizens versus residents. That's been the argument. And so so there have been some proposals that they should be counted separately or whatever. Up till now, residents have been counted. If you're living, I'm in Minneapolis, if you're living in the state of Minnesota, if you're living here, you get counted. There's no distinction made between residents and citizens. But then again, only citizens can vote, right? And it's been projected right now. Some polling organization figured out that if only citizens were held to the census rolls, the Democrats would lose about 22 seats in the House. This is not going well for them at all, and they know it. And so apparently, David Strom pointed out, our friend at Hot Air, their tactic, which is basically the only thing they can grab onto, is to keep the passions really high on their hardcore voting base so that they will turn out in November. And like David said, I agree with him. That might work. Even if the public is, like I've given you all these statistics about the fact the majority of the public is against all this crap, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is who turns out and votes. And that has worked in the past. So it might work for them. If they can keep, a bunch of liberal Democrats mad for the next 9 months, they might get a turnout. They might. So it's really interesting. Now, it sounds like I'm changing the subject here, but actually I'm not. So you've probably heard this. The Melania documentary on the First Lady of the United States just blew the doors out of the out of the box office. It's the highest. It was the highest attended, highest grossing documentary in theaters in at least 10 years. And the amazing thing is, as you've probably seen, it's been completely, utterly trashed by the critics. The thing that bothers me here, and that David talks about all the time, I know I keep referencing him, but he's been on the show a million times, and I think the guy's just a fabulous writer. I've been trying to encourage him to write a book. I really have. It's like the man's just fantastic. But the problem, I've never seen, and he has said the same thing, but I'm echoing him. I've never seen incidents where the mainstream media of the United States was so utterly against an administration or a person or a couple, if you want to put it that way. I mean, they will not. The problem is right now, ICE is trying to get illegal criminals out of the country, and they're against that. They're basically against anything Donald Trump is for. So here, Donald Trump's wife, the First Lady of the United States, is featured in this documentary. And the real amazing thing is that in 2 weeks, this documentary ends up on Prime Video. I don't know if it's going to be paid or free. I don't know. But the fact is, you won't have to leave your house to see it. And still, a zillion people went out and saw it. That's getting back to all these statistics I'm counting, is the difference between what the press wants you to think and what the public actually thinks. Trump won the election easily, and the stuff he campaigned on doing, he's trying to do, and the majority of the public is for it. And there's no getting around that. Every single figure, and here now you got a box office figure. I mean, they said this movie is going to freaking tank, and it did the opposite. And that's my point here. That's the reason I brought all this up together, is that the Democrats are trying to convince you that the majority of the public thinks this way, and they don't. That's the point. So Moving on, I'm happy to report this. The UN, the United Nations, is on the brink of bankruptcy because the countries are not paying their bills. And America stopped paying because we paid too much. And I guess the Trump administration said, F you, we're not going to pay anymore. And we did. We have not paid for, I think, 2026 and 2025, I think. And we have, it's done by budget or by gross national product or something, but we are the largest single payer. And now they're crying the fact that they might end up bankrupt. Oh, that's terrible. Such a pointless organization. It doesn't get anything done. All they do is waste money. All they do is that they have more meetings, and then and people come to New York City and they hire hookers, and it's just hilarious. The whole thing is that, and you may think, okay, no, Jim, they don't really hire hookers. No, they hire hookers every single time this goes outside of the United States. Here we can't keep figures, but in places where prostitution is legal, oh my God, if the UN has a meeting like in Brussels, the mountain number of the business for the prostitution industry goes way up for 1 week. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So I've talked on this show about the potential dangers of AI in the sense that in the short term, I think it's going to cause a lot of unemployment. I still think that the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer of Palantir, one of the AI companies, his name is Shyam Shankar. He has put out an op-ed, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, was it on Fox News, about the fact that he thinks that people are being lied to and that this isn't going to happen. Now, I've said in the short term being 20 years. That's why I say that this is going to really upend the markets and basically the employment situation in the United States and probably the world. And that, people aren't going to know what to do because they won't be able to prepare for a career because they don't know things are going to change so quickly. They don't know, where people will be hiring. And Sankar's right about the fact that he says, you don't understand, humans are going to drive AI, and they are, but it's not going to take many of them. That's the problem. I've said this before. I'm going to say this again. Within 20 years, 30 for sure, virtually all menial physical labor will be eliminated in the United States. There will be some AI robot doing something everywhere. And I'm not talking about the robots in the factory with the robot arms and stuff. I'm talking about actual android, humanoid AI robots walking around. They're going to do everything that people found completely menial or distasteful or whatever. They will, they'll do it. I mean, I'm sure they'll be working at Tyson Chicken, scraping chickens at some point. Even stuff that takes a lot of human judgment, or relatively a lot. At some point, that's 20 or 30 years from now, not next year, but at some point they will be doing all that stuff. The problem with what Elon Musk has said that that AI and these robots are going to basically eliminate all human scarcity. Well, that's not really true because it's going to maybe eliminate all menial labor, but we're still going to have scarcity in terms of actual goods and materials. In other words, it's not going to there's not going to be more titanium because AI robots exist. I've said, and I still make this prediction, that it's going to be another 100 to 200 years when we have atomic level 3D printers. At that point, replicators, just like that on Star Trek. At that point, scarcity will be truly eliminated. And I'll be honest with you, at that point, socialism will make a good sense because capitalism is based on scarcity, and we're still going to have scarcity. We're going to have scarcity for a long time. Now, scarcity, I'm not talking about the concept of scarcity in economic terms. We're not talking about the fact that not a lot of something exists. It's literally the supply and demand of the market of depending on how much you have, depends on how much it's worth. That's what I'm talking about. In the UK, they're already examining the fact, and you can leave it to government, God knows, about the fact that they should maybe start considering universal basic income because of AI. Universal income, basic income is a stupid idea, but I'll tell you what isn't a stupid idea, and I mentioned this before too, and that is what's called negative income tax. Milton Friedman, he addressed this, he predicted this like 60 years ago. So the difference is universal basic income, like for example, means every American over the age of 21 would get $1,000 from the government a month free. That's what it means. Doesn't matter what your income level is otherwise, or if you inherited a bunch of money, doesn't matter. You get the $1,000. Negative income tax means if your income dropped below a certain level, the government would make up for that. You know, like for example, if the level's set at like let's say $40,000 and you made 38 last year, the government would give you $2,000 instead of you paying the government in in income tax. That's how that works. And that's a lot more efficient because in the first scenario in universal basic income, everybody gets money, and even if you don't need it. You know, it's this one thing, people, we're all equal. No, we're not all equal. No, we're not. First of all, some of us have more money than others, and it's been like that for 15,000 years. It's going to continue to be that way. It is. There's no getting around it. So whereas universal income, basic income will bankrupt the government, there's a possibility that negative income tax wouldn't. So, but the Brits are nuts. The Brits they're basically walking off a gangplank at this point. That they are so far gone in terms of what's going on over there that I don't know. It looks like Farage is probably going to be the next prime minister, but I don't know. It might be too late for him to save it. It's like they're completely messed up, totally. And Germany is too. Germany decided in their infinite wisdom that they were going to basically kill all fossil fuel electrical plants and even the nuclear ones, and which was like I mean, put a gun in my head. It's like that's unbelievable. Although there's no basis for killing the fossil fuel ones, I understand the ideological basis of it, which is completely false. But still, there's no logic in killing the nuclear power plants, but they did that anyway, and now they're suffering brownouts and blackouts in their major cities, and they're going. It's crazy, and they're going to end up buying oil from Russia if they haven't already. Which is I don't know. God damn, these people are stupid. Jesus. All right, so I like to do conspiracies here. I got a couple here. There's a film. I did not know about this, and I know quite a lot about this subject. There's a film of the JFK assassination on November 22nd, 1963, that the government has held for 60 years and was shot by a guy named Nix. And the thing about this film, the reason it's so important, is that he shot it from the other side of the grassy knoll from where Abraham Zapruder, his famous film, he's standing right in front of the grassy knoll. In other words, if shots were coming, if there was someone shooting, it would have been behind him. Now he says he felt shots coming over his shoulder. He said that he's in the air. He said that, but that's not proof by any means. But the Nix film apparently is from the other direction. It's from the middle of the park at Dealey Plaza, facing toward the grassy knoll, and it might actually clear this up. And the government has had this film for 60 years and never let anybody see it. Now they're saying they've lost it. But the Nix family is suing the government to get it back because they said that based on current market value, it might be worth almost $1 billion. And they're right, it might. That's based on what Zapruder got for his film. He sold it. Zapruder sold that film almost immediately, I think within a week, to Life magazine. And they held on to it for 8-10 years or something like that before they let anybody see it. Nobody's seen the Nix film. Nobody's seen it. But we know it exists. So you're thinking, well, if the government has something to hide, that'd be a good reason for them not to show it to anybody, wouldn't it? Anyway, the Nix family is now suing to get it back. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to that. And then in the other conspiracy thing we got going on this week is the FBI is releasing more files from the D.B. Cooper hijacking case from 1971. The people have seen the files. They're public now. The people look through them. There's no smoking gun. They still don't know who DB Cooper was. There's one interesting thing that came out from this release, though, that people knew, and I knew too, but not to this extent. It was pretty obvious that Cooper knew how to fly the 737 they were on. It's like he gave the pilot very specific instructions on landing gear or landing flap ratios and all sorts of stuff like that, on how to land the plane. He told them do this, but it would turn out he knew even more than anybody thought, because at some point when they took off, so the thing is, this flight, it was supposed to go from Tacoma to Seattle, if it was, which was really literally like what, 20 minutes in the air. Was very, very short, and he had the plane diverted to Portland, and then from Portland he said to fly toward Mexico. That was his only example thing, because he knew he was going to jump. But when they left Portland, he told the pilot to take off with the back stairway down. And the pilots got back to him and said, "We can't do that. That's impossible." And Cooper told them, he said, "Well, you're wrong about that, but that's fine. I'll let you put it down once we get in the air." It turns out that the year before that, Boeing had done a test, and it was very obscure. Boeing had done a test to see if that was possible, and they determined that it was. And the fact that Cooper knew this, along with all the other aeronautical stuff he knew, means he must have been really, really connected to the aeronautical industry, because even the pilots didn't know this, but Cooper apparently did. So that's the only real thing that came out of this. There've been, there's like 17 people who have qualified for being DB Cooper. They've never figured it out. The person who's like considered most likely is a guy named Richard McCoy, who tried and failed to do a copycat type thing, like 6 months after that. And they think he might have been actually DB Cooper and tried it a second time. But no one really knows. It's really amazing. We have the only thing that Cooper left behind on the plane was his clip-on tie. That's it. And it has been gone over and been vacuumed, and they have pulled stuff out of it. It's unbelievable. So there's people, and apparently this is really true. There's some exotic metal on the tie that they've traced to one single foundry in like Pennsylvania that made once again aeronautical parts. And I can't remember what the metal is. It's very, very obscure. It's a very obscure alloy, and it was on the tie. And so that's kind of a hint. But then again, they don't know if somebody was working there. They have no idea. Oh geez, who knows? Who cares? And UFO news, and I have to do this. So that is, there's a guy named Mark Christopher Lee. He's a ufologist in Britain, and he's put out several. Let me get this off the screen. Holy Christ. He's put out several documentaries on UFOs. He says people in the White House and the Trump administration have told him that that Trump already has a speech written to tell the public that the extraterrestrials are here. And the plan right now, he says, is to do it on the anniversary of Roswell, which is right after. No one's ever actually the general date that's been agreed upon is July 7th, but it's anywhere from the 5th to the 9th. It will be right after the country's 250th birthday celebration. And right now, he says he's been told that the plan right now is that Trump will read the speech, will announce the fact that the extraterrestrials are visiting Earth on that anniversary. That's what he says. We'll see. He also says, I don't think this is true. He says that he thinks that Trump won't even be able to wait, because I've said this too. I think Trump will want the credit for doing this, which is the reason I think, but I think he'll do it like the last month of his term. That's what I think. I've said it's going to be January 29. But Lee says he's been told by people in the administration it's going to happen on the 79th anniversary of Roswell, which is going to be this coming July. So that's interesting. And finally, I'll leave you with this. I have actually more, but I'm trying to get ahead because I don't want, I can go on forever. And you folks know that too. So a hospital in Britain was evacuated when a patient came in with an 8-inch World War I artillery shell stuck up his ass. Oh yeah, I keep telling you, in my heart, I'm 12 years old. I find that incredibly funny. But they had to evacuate the hospital because they don't know if it's gonna. I should have clipped this. There was actually a picture, not of the actual thing in his ass, but they had a picture of a similar a cartridge shell, and it's not small. It isn't. But they had to remove it from the guy's butt. Yep. Uh-huh. And that's the bedtime news for February 3rd. I want to thank Nils Grevillius again. Our guest on Thursday. Now we were going to take today and Wednesday off and do a show Monday. Nils couldn't do it at the last minute. That's the reason we changed it. We're taking tomorrow off. And Thursday, our guest is going to be a guy named Jonathan Butcher, and I can't remember the name of his book. It's terrible. I'm running this. I'm all by myself, folks. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So Jonathan Butcher is going to be our guest, and I can't even remember what his book is about now. But I'll know by Thursday. I will, because we're going to talk to him. So, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it a lot. TikTok's blowing up. I don't quite understand, but yeah, we post shorts there. They get thousands of views. I want to thank you for that too. So good night, Dave Moore, wherever you are, and good night to you, wherever you may be. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you on Thursday night. Take care, everybody.